do some paper for chapter 15. So yeah, you may refer to this notes later, okay? Let me show you the chapter 15 first. This one, okay. So last week we stopped until here. Okay, so I hope you already know that the effect. I'm sharing the screen, right? Yeah, I think I'm sharing the screen. Okay, I hope you already know that the effect of the carbon monoxide and the nicotines, how they can induce the lung damage to our body, and also how the carbon monoxide, right? What they can do is carbon monoxide, they have a very high affinity to the hemoglobin. Means that if the hemoglobin they encounter carbon monoxide and they encounter the oxygens, right, at the same time. So hemoglobin, they will choose to bind to the carbon monoxide instead of binding to the oxygens. This is because that carbon monoxide, they have a higher affinity for the hemoglobin. Okay. So if the carbon monoxide bind to hemoglobin, they will become, we call it as a carboxy hemoglobin. Okay. So this will reduce the oxygen capacity of the blood. So what does this mean? Means that if the hemoglobins, they already bind to carbon monoxides, there's no space available for the hemoglobin to bind to the oxygen again. So you will able to reduce the oxygen's transport efficiency. Okay, so in order to get the same amount of oxygen, right? It's not same amount of oxygen, but in order to meet the oxygen demand of the body, but you don't have you don't have more hemoglobin available for the oxygen binding because hemoglobin already bind to already bind to the carbon monoxide. So that's why what you're able to do is to compensate the reduce in the oxygen deficiency, right? So your body will increase their breathing frequency, and that means that they will increase their breathing rates, and then they will breathe more deeply, trying to get more oxygen. Okay, so in order to get the same amount of the oxygen in the blood. So this will cause the burdens to your body. It will put more strains on the circulatory system to pump the blood faster around the body, and it will increase the risk of the coronary heart disease and the stroke. That means your body, right, especially your heart, okay, your hearts need to pump more pressure. It's not pump more pressure. I mean, your heart need to generate higher pressure. Higher pressure, so they able to eject the blood out to all part of body. Okay, so by this way, they are trying to deliver the oxygen as much as they can to all part of body. So this will cause the, we call as strain. Okay, you put more strain to the circulatory system. Strain is something like burdens. So what is the effect is in the long term, in the long term consequence, right, it will cause the blood vessels, the wall of the blood vessel, because they are constantly pump the blood under the very, very high pressure, right? So it will cause the blood vessel wall, right, become unable to withstand such a very high blood pressure, and then maybe they can lead to stroke. Okay, so what I mean by stroke? This one, stroke, 中风. So the stroke happens due to the blood capillary inside the veins rupture. Okay, so this is a stroke. So once the blood capillary rupture, right, I can just imagine it. Initially, right, your red blood cell, they are flow within the blood vessel. So what will happen is due to such a very, very high pressure, so unable to blood vessel wall cannot withstand the pressure, so they will rupture. So when they rupture, they will cause the red blood cell leaking out from the from the blood vessel and get into the tissue space. Yeah, so stroke will happen, and also it will cause the thickening and narrowing of the blood vessel wall. So this will able to contribute to the coronary heart disease development. So that means it's not good. It's not good. Then how about nicotine? Nicotine that will narrow the blood vessels and also increase the pressures within the blood vessels. So, and then contribute to the coronary heart disease. Okay, so it will cause, actually both carbon monoxide and nicotine, they will bring the consequence which is almost similar, which is they will reduce the oxygen's capacity of the blood. Okay, means that the heart muscle now they are unable to get sufficient oxygen. So if you want to get more oxygen, right, that means you need to pump harder. You need to work harder. So if you unable to get enough oxygen, right, so you will have lesser aerobic reaction take place. So heart muscle, right, because constantly, they need the constant supply of the oxygen. But now the issue is the heart muscle, they don't have enough oxygen supply to them. So what will happen is the heart muscle, right, what they do is they will try to compensate back. So how they will do is heart muscle, they will switch their respiration from the aerobic respirations to become the anaerobic respirations. Okay, so I think you learned about aerobic and anaerobic respiration before, right? Okay, so aerobic respiration, they can release more energy compared to anaerobic respirations. Anaerobic respiration refers to the respiration is happens in the absence of the oxygen, without oxygen. They happen without oxygen. So if the respirations, they happen without oxygen, right, you produce a lactic acid. Okay, I think you learned about fermentation before, right? Fermentation, we have two types of fermentations. First, we have the lactic acid fermentation. So this is showing the lactic acid fermentations happens in the muscle cell, okay? In the actively respiring muscle cell. So the equation will be something like this. Glucose will become lactic acid. And then they will release energy. But they will release a very less amount of energy, okay? Less amount of energy. So due to the incomplete breakdown of glucose, actually the anaerobic reactions, right, the glucose is being broken down incomplete. So that means that there's still some chemical energy discovered inside glucose, but due to the absence of oxygen, right, so the glucose unable to fully break down. So that's why glucose will produce a lactic acid as a byproduct. Because if in the normal way of the aerobic respiration, right, so glucose will become what? Become carbon dioxide and the water. But now they will produce a lactic acid. So lactic acid is being produced as a byproduct during anaerobic respirations, and which cannot be removed due to the lack of blood supply. Because in the normal situations, like if you are performing the vigorous exercise activities, so the lactic acid, after they're being produced, right, lactic acid, they need to be broken down. I mean that your body will trying to break down the lactic acids. So how they able to break down lactic acids is they will transfer the lactic acid from the muscle back to where? Back to the liver, okay, which is in the normal pathway. In the normal pathway, right here, okay, in the normal pathway, right, especially when you are performing the exercise. Because during exercise, right, what you're able to do is you are increasing the oxygen demand, okay, increasing oxygen demand. But the problem is the oxygen that you inhale when you are performing the exercise unable to meet the demand of the muscle. So that's why they will also do the anaerobic respirations. So this will produce a lactic acid. So that's why you will feel like your muscle is like very, very uncomfortable. Okay, you feel like muscle cramp. So this lactic acid, right, only accumulate in your muscle for about 1 or 2 days only. So after that, they will be removed away. They need to break down. So how the lactic acid in the muscle able to break down? That's why the bloods, right, they will transport the lactic acids from the muscle, from the actively respiring muscle to where? To the liver. Lactic acid from the muscle to the blood, then to the liver. They need to undergo bloodstream first before they reach the liver. So liver, what they do is liver, they will play an important role in break down the lactic acids. Okay, liver will break down lactic acids. Become what? Become the carbon dioxide and the water. This is what liver will do. But whenever you have this nicotine effect, right? So due to the lack of the blood supply, due to this factor, lack of blood supply to the body cell. So the lactic acid, which is produced, cannot be removed. So lactic acid, right, and then this acid. So acid, it will create a very, very low pH environment. So this low pH environment is not favorable for the enzyme to live on. So the low pH, they're able to denature the enzyme. So eventually the heart muscle cell will die. So when the heart muscle cell die, right, it will lead to the heart attacks. That means that you feel your heart very pain, okay, in a severe pain, and then you need to rush to the hospital to save yourself. So that means that if you have the nicotine deposits in your blood vessels, okay, it will lead the coronary heart disease due to the narrow blood vessel. Due to nicotine, they able to cause the narrowing of blood vessel. And when the blood vessel become narrowing, right, they are easy to be clogged with the fat or any cholesterol within the coronary artery. So if the coronary artery being clogged, right, so they will cause the heart muscle unable to get the enough oxygen to do the aerobic restrictions. So the heart muscle, they'll switch become the anaerobic restrictions, and then will produce the lactic acids. Okay, but lactic acid cannot be removed away, and due to the lack of blood supply, because you already narrow your blood vessel, right, and then you actually reduce the blood transport. You are actually reduce blood transport from the heart muscle to every part of the body. So when the lactic acid accumulate within the heart muscle, they can destroy the enzyme which is found inside the heart muscle. Okay, so this is a point that you may write. And then we talk about any correlations between smoking and lung cancer. Means that you can see this graph, right? This graph is based on the years, every 10 years, and then adult who smoke. So you have the smoker, which is male and which is female. And then you can have the male rates or female rates of the lung cancer. So by this study, right, scientists want to know that is there any positive correlations between the smoking and the lung disease? It's not lung disease, it's lung cancer, okay? Lung cancer. And then you already know, right? The lung cancer is the first most common type of cancer, which they will affect the China populations. Maybe a lot of people smoke, maybe. So you can see this pink color curve, right, is the adult smoker, which is male. And then this green color curve, which is from the female. So male and the female. And then what happened is another two line. The blue color means that lung cancer in male. And then the orange color means that lung cancer in female. So you can observe the trend of the graph. So I think throughout the years, right, the males, they will be reducing. Means actually reducing of the male smoker. So when the male smoker they reduce over the years, it will cause the lung cancer in the male also decrease. So both show decreasing trends over the years. Then how about in female? In female, right, you are actually not obviously decreased like in male. Okay, you can see in female, right, they are like fluctuating. I mean the number. Okay, so sometimes they will be like increase, sometimes they will decrease, increase. See here increase again, then here decrease again, then here increase again. But from the 1970 above, they actually show the decreasing trend. Okay, so the lung cancer in the female, right, is not as obvious, reducing the trend compared to the male. So it just showing like the static. Okay, so this means what? It means that you need to observe the curve, right? And then you need to write down your statements. Means that describe how you're able to describe the curve. This line curve. Yeah. So as the general trend for the number of adult smokers reduce, so does the trend of lung cancer rates also reduce a few years later. Okay, but even though you are actually decreased, right? But the lung cancer, they take some time to decrease. Okay, because the lung cancer, they take some time to develop also. And then the trend in the rate of developing lung cancer for the women have been increasing, while in the men's decreasing. So you can see, right? The woman is just like increasing, slightly increasing, but the man is totally decreasing the trend. So this is because that the number of female smoker alignments continue to increase in the 1950 and 1960 before starting to fall. So around here, you see, right? There's an increasing trend. So whenever you answer this kind of question, right, you need to observe. You need to have an observant eyes, and then you need to able to describe the trends. Okay, either it's increasing or decreasing or just remain static. So as the cancer takes some time to develop, a fall in the female rate of cancer is likely to occur later. Okay, so you can see, right, the lung cancer in the female, although it show like slightly increasing trends, like this, see, slightly increasing. Okay, but after that they show decreasing. Okay, because lung cancer, right, they take some time to disappear also. Okay, they take some time to disappear. Lung cancer is a chronic type of cancer. Okay, it's not too acute. Means that if the people infected with the lung cancer, right, they will slowly die off. It's a chronic form of disease. Okay, it's a chronic form of disease. Okay, then now we'll talk about this one. Performing enhancing drug in the sport. I think you heard about this kind of news before, right? And athletes, okay, sometimes they will use some quite dirty methods to win their competitions. Okay, so they will take some drug. So this drug we know as what? We know as the performing enhancing drug. So when the athletes take this kind of drug, right, they will feel very energetic, very powerful. Yeah, so they can win the competitions. Okay, in a very easy way. Okay, yeah. So this drug is being prohibited in the sport events or sport competitions. Okay, means that they cannot use this kind of drug. If the athletes, even they win the competition, right? But after that, if they are being detected that maybe the urine samples, they have consumed this kind of performing enhanced drug before they taking the competition, right? They will be like disqualified for enter into the competition again. So what is performing enhancing drug? So actually it's not a drug. Actually it's a hormones. Okay, these hormones, right, we call as testosterone. This testosterone is kind of 6 hormones naturally produced in the male and the female. Yeah. In female also we do have the testosterone, but in the male, right, they have a higher concentration of the testosterone as compared to the female. Okay, so where the male they get this testosterone? Okay, these are testosterone. So they are being secreted in the testes. Okay, so remember that testis is the one of the endocrine glands. You learn in chapter 14, right? There are few endocrine glands, which is the thyroid glands, pituitary gland, okay, and also the adrenal glands, testes, ovary. Those are the endocrine glands able to secrete out the hormones. So here's the testis. Testis can secrete the testosterone. Okay, so this testosterone is a sex hormone. So what they can do is they will cause they will induce the secondary sexual characteristic in the male. Means the male will become more muscular. Okay, because these hormones, right, they will affect the development of the male secondary sexual characteristic. So the male, right, will appear more mature due to the effect of this testosterone. Okay, So some people, right, some athletes, they will take these additional hormones to increase this effect. So what do these hormones do? These hormones, right, is a kind of the steroid. Do you know what I mean as steroid? Steroid in Mandarin we call as 类固醇. It's a kind of drug. 类固醇. It's not 胆固醇啊, it's 类固醇, okay? Cholesterol is 胆固醇. I think you learned before, right? Cholesterol, this one. Cholesterol is 胆固醇, steroid is 类固醇. The similarity for this cholesterol and the steroid is both are also classified under the lipid. Okay, they are actually a type of lipid. So this testosterone is the steroid hormones. Means that these hormones, right, is made from the lipid. Steroid hormones is made from the lipid. So what they do is they will stimulate the anabolic reactions. Okay, what is meant by anabolic reactions? I'm not sure I mentioned to you before or not. This one. Maybe I show you this one. Metabolism. Okay. Oh, what happened? This one, metabolism. Metabolisms, you heard before, right? In chapter 1. So what's mean a metabolism? Metabolism can be classified into two types, anabolism and catabolism. So metabolism, it refers to the chemical reactions that happen in our body. All kind of chemical reactions happen in our body. So we call it metabolism. Okay. And then metabolism, right? If you want to further differentiate, you can differentiate into these two reactions. Okay. We call as this one. We call as a catabolism and the anabolism. Cata means crack. Crack means that you're trying to breaking down the larger molecule. So how about anabolism? Anabolism means that you are building up. You're actually building up a large complex molecule from their monomer. For example, if you want to produce the glycogens, right? Yeah, from the glucose in the blood, they convert to become glycogens in the liver due to the effect of the insulin. Okay, insulin hormones, they are trying to reducing the blood glucose level by converts the glucose in the blood to become the glycogen and store in the liver or the muscle. So actually this process, right, is known as the anabolism because they are actually building up a very large and complex molecule, which is a glycogen. I hope you still remember that. Glycogen is a kind of polysaccharide, right? It's a kind of polysaccharide. It's a very, very complex form of the polysaccharide. So those polysaccharide is made from the monomer. The monomer is called as the glucose. So just imagine that these steroid hormones, their function is they will stimulate anabolic reactions. Means they will induce the building up of the molecule. For example, they will induce the synthesis of a large molecule from a smaller one. So they are known as an anabolic steroid. Means that if you inject these steroid hormones, which is testosterone, into the body, so they will cause effect. So which is your body, they will start to produce on some compound, okay? Start to synthesize on the large molecule. So what do they synthesize? They actually synthesize the muscle fibers. This one. Okay, so this is the effect. Take a star here. The effect is they will cause more proteins to be made in the muscle. So the muscle, they become larger and stronger. So that's why the athletes, they appear muscular. They become more muscular. So taking anabolic steroids, you are able to increase the muscle mass, help the athletes train harder and for longer period of time. Means that the athletes, right, if they intake these steroid hormones, they will have the higher endurance levels. Means that they can tolerate the very high intensity of exercise compared to the normal situation, which is they don't take these steroid hormones. Okay, so it will cause aggressions also. What's meant by aggressions? because this testosterone is a mu6 hormones, right? So mu6 hormones, they will have this kind of like aggregation effect. Okay, so which can give an edge for the competing. Aggregation means that the ally, right, they will appear become more energetic, more powerful, more aggressive during competitions in order to fight. Okay, in order to fight over the competitions. Yeah. So they have increased the chance to win. Okay, because they are more aggressive. So use of anabolic steroid in the sport is being banned. Okay, so see, we cannot use this because they will give the side effect. So the only advantage of this anabolic steroid is they will induce the secretions. It's not secretion. They will induce the synthesizing of the more muscle protein, so they can help to build up the muscle mass in the easier way. Okay, so this is their effect. Increase the muscle mass. So a lot of men, right, they will take this kind of hormones because they can help them to build their muscle easier in the easier way. Okay, if not, right, they need to train very hard to get their muscle built up. So you're able to increase the heart disease, liver damage, kidney damage. Okay, and that's weird. Do you know why? If you take this anabolic steroid, right, you are actually increasing the heart disease. Do you know why? Okay, it's because that you can imagine like that. If you are taking this steroid, right, in the long-term effects, okay, yes, this steroid will help you to build up a lot of that muscle mass. Okay, means that your muscle will become more stronger, yeah, bigger compared to the normal man's. But what happens is you're actually increasing your muscle mass, right? You are increasing your muscle tissue, your muscle cell. So you are actually increasing the oxygen demand of the muscle. Okay, means that if a man's which appear more muscular, they have a higher oxygen demand for their muscle compared to the normal man, which is they just a very thin muscle. 就说那个肌肉更加发达的那个男生，对不对？他们需要有更加多的这个氧气供应给他们这个 muscle，因为他们那个 muscle 那个量比较多一点。So that's why it will lead to the heart disease. It's because that your body will try to compensate by increasing the oxygen transport. Okay, increasing your blood flow and oxygen transport to the muscle. So this will lead to the requires the increasing burdens. Okay, it will increase the burden to your hearts. So slowly they will develop this heart disease. Something like that. Okay, heart disease, liver damage, or kidney damage. And also, if the testosterone, right, if they are injected to the women, so it will affect the menstrual cycle of the women. Okay, because for the women to have the balanced menstrual cycle, right, they need to have the regulation of hormones, okay, which is that 4 hormones: estrogen, progesterone, follicle stimulating hormones, and the luteinizing hormones. We'll learn more in chapter 16. So if you induce this testosterone into the women, so this testosterone, right, they will disrupt the normal hormone productions for the women to do their menstrual cycle. So maybe the women will not have the menstrual cycle already because the hormone is being disrupted by the testosterone. And then you're actually decreasing the ability of immunity to destroy pathogens. So those are the side effects. So they just allow the men to move. I mean to look more muscular only, okay? But they will bring a lot of side effects. So don't try this. This is not a good thing. Okay, so we already finished about this chapter, and then we study some question. Okay, we have a look some of question for this chapter 15. It's going to be harder and harder, right? Yeah. So at this one, maybe you can open this one. You can open this one. This one. I already sent to you. Okay, and then you can just read out the answer and the question. Okay, so we can just go through it very quickly. Oh. here. Where is it? Oh, here. Okay. Penicillin is an antibiotic. Okay, penicillin, right? Penicillin is actually first antibiotic being created by the scientists. It's not being created. I mean, penicillin is the first antibiotic being discovered by the scientists when they are trying to grow the fungus, which is penicillin. So explain why the doctor, they give the antibiotic to the people who are ill. It's because that antibiotic, right, they only can treat the bacterial infections. They cannot treat the virus infections. Okay, so antibiotic, what they do is they will target on the pathogens like the bacteria. They will target the bacteria pathogens which they will cause the infections. So how they will work is they will kill these pathogens by preventing their growth and reproductions. Okay, they will prevent the bacteria grow and reproduce again. So, and then they allow the body immune system to eliminate the disease. And then you can add one more thing. Antibiotic, you can write that. Antibiotic, right, they will target on the cell wall of the bacteria. So they will puncture a hole on the cell of bacteria, and then they will cause the internal cell content leak out. So this will lysis of the bacteria. Okay, so for your information, we don't only have one type of antibiotic, which is penicillin. We actually have a lot of different class of the antibiotic, and those antibiotic, they can work in the different mechanism. Means that some of the antibiotic, right, just like penicillin, they're able to target on the cell wall, and then they will puncture a hole and cause a lysis of bacteria. But some antibiotic, right, instead of targeting the cell wall, okay, they will just get into the bacteria and get the DNA, right, they will just inhibit the replications of the DNA. Okay, they will inhibit on the ribosomes or the DNA replications. This is some of the antibody, they will just work in this way. So their main goal, their main purpose is they will prevent the bacteria from being reproduced again. Because bacteria, right, they can reproduce very fast. Okay, bacteria, they can undergo two types of reproductions, asexual and sexual. Asexuals, okay, they can allow the bacteria to be multiplied to produce a very large amount in a very, very short time. So that's why you need those antibiotics to kill them. And this one, why is it important to complete a full treatment of antibiotic? Means that whenever the doctor prescribe you with antibiotic, right, you need to complete the full dose of the treatments. Okay, so this is prevent you from getting the antibiotic resistant bacteria. So it's very important to complete the full treatments of the antibiotic to ensure that all of the harmful bacteria are being killed by the antibiotic. So if you just stop your treatments early, you didn't follow, you didn't listen to the doctor, you just stop your treatments of antibiotic. Maybe that is the doctor, they ask you to eat the antibiotic, right, for about 5 days, and then you eat only 3 days, and then you stop already. So this will cause that, because when you eat the antibiotic for the first 3 days, right, so these first 3 days, the antibiotic, they will help to kill the bacteria in your body. But this bacteria, right, they will cause like some of the bacteria not being killed by the antibiotic yet. And then those bacteria not being killed by the antibiotic, right, usually those bacteria is very, very, we call resistant bacteria. Meaning that this bacteria, right, they already develop the resistant genes against the antibiotic. So this makes this will make the bacteria become very hard to be killed by the antibiotic. So any remaining bacteria, they can reproduce. Okay, so if you stop the antibiotic, right, the remaining bacteria not being killed by the antibiotic, and also they carry the resistant genes, so they can reproduce again. So at the end, it will cause the illness to return again. So also you're able to increase the risk of the developing antibiotic resistance, so which can make the antibiotic become ineffective against the future infection. That means that if you develop this antibiotic resistance, right, okay, if you take second time or third time with the same antibiotic, means that those antibodies are unable to cure your infections. Then you need to change the antibody to another type. Okay, maybe like for the penicillin, you change to any other antibiotic like the amoxicillins. Those are antibiotics. You cannot use the same antibody again. Okay, Elder Suyang, okay, let me ask you, what type of the microorganism they can produce the antibody penicillin? Do you still remember? Who produced that penicillin? Waiting for your answer. Who produced penicillin?
Penicillin.
Penicillin, yeah, correct. So what is a penicillin? It's a fungus. This one. Remember there is a double L here. See, double L. Yes, yes. Okay, so we didn't talk about this first, okay, because this, right, you will study in chapter 12. It's not chapter 12, chapter 21. We study about biotechnologies. So in this biotechnology chapter, right, you will learn about how the scientists able to produce the penicillin in a very large amount. Okay, so they can produce a very large amount of the penicillin antibody by using this biofermenter. We call it biofermenter. Okay. Okay. Then now we talk about drug. For the drug, right? Usually they will not so frequent to come out in exam, but sometimes they will come out in the exam. Okay. So that's why you still need to study. Okay. So they ask you explain why nicotine is a drug. So what is meant by drug? Drug is a chemical substance, right? They can induce the addictions to your body. So nicotine is a chemical substance. You should write these keywords. Okay. So when you take it in the body, right, they can modify the chemical reactions in the body. Nicotines, they will affect the chemical reactions in the body. And then they will cause the addictions. This one, additive. So which will cause the withdrawal symptoms when stopped. So that's why if a man, right, it's not men only that. If the peoples, if they smoke, right, they smoke every day. If you suddenly ask them don't smoke for about 1 week, right, they cannot tolerate it. Okay, because they have this withdrawal symptom. So at that point, what's mean by withdrawal symptom? Withdrawal symptoms means that if you don't take the drug anymore, you feel like very tired, no moods, lethargy. So this is called withdrawal symptom. It's just someone like, some people, right, they will drink coffee every day. They drink coffee about 2 to 3 times per day. Okay, if you ask them don't drink coffee about 1 day, they cannot tolerate. They'll feel like suddenly very, very tired. And then you need to give them with coffee. Only they can regain back their, their energy. So because coffee, just like nicotine also, they will lead to the addictions to the people. So if you suddenly cut the source of the nicotine or the coffee, right, it will cause a withdrawal symptom. Okay, withdrawal symptom is something like this. Withdrawal symptom. For example, okay, the sign of the nicotine's withdrawal, okay, you will have this one. You feel like very stressed, irritations, and then you cannot sleep well, right? You will feel very stressed because you cannot sleep well. And then you are like thinking about nicotine, okay, just want to, you just want to get the nicotine, yeah. So this we call withdrawal symptom because you're already addicted to it. Okay, describe the effect on the gas exchange system of the following component of the tobacco smoke. So what happened to carbon monoxide? Carbon monoxide is different from the carbon dioxide. Carbon monoxide is CO only, okay, CO. Carbon dioxide is CO2. But the carbon monoxide, right, they have a higher affinity to bind to the hemoglobin. So carbon monoxide, they just bind to hemoglobin permanently. You can say permanently means that they just bind to hemoglobin forever. So if they bind to hemoglobin forever, right, there'll be no chance for the oxygens or the carbon dioxide just to bind to the hemoglobin again. So they will form what? Carboxy hemoglobin. Okay, this one you can take note. Hemoglobin bind to the carbon monoxide. We form the carboxy hemoglobin. So this will reduce the oxygen transport because oxygen unable to bind to hemoglobin again. So it will cause your body tissue unable to get enough oxygen. Then how about the tar? Tar is from the tobacco, okay? Sorry, tobacco. Tar is from the tobacco. So the tobacco is a carcinogenic chemical compound that causes lung cancer. Because tar, right? Okay, carbon monoxide is a kind of gas, okay? Actually, it's a kind of very poisonous gas. Then how about tar? Tar is just something like this. Tar. Let me show you the tar. Okay, tar in the tobacco smoke. See, it's something like this. This is a tar, okay? Something like black color thing. See, tar. So what happened is this tar, right? They will stain your teeth also, and then they will irritate your respiratory lining, and then they will damage your lung structure. So yeah. I mean they will bring a very harmful effect to your lungs. So those are the tar. So what is tar? Tar is a carcinogenic. What does it mean by carcinogenic? Carcinogenic means that this substance, they can cause cancer. Any substance able to cause cancer, they know as carcinogenic. For example, I think you heard about this one, formaldehyde. Okay, formaldehyde is a carcinogenic compound because they can cause cancer. So tar is also carcinogenic because they can cause lung cancer. So you can see, right, tar is a very sticky substance. Okay, I don't know how to explain it, but it's just very sticky, like this. Those are the tar. Okay, so this tar, right, they can stain and then they can block the respiratory airways. It sticks to block and damage the alveolus lining and the cilia on the respiratory lining. So this is the effect of tar. Okay, and then you know that along our respiratory tract, right, which is on the the respiratory linings, our respiratory lining, right, is very thin, right? It just has a cilia, okay, with the very thin layer of the epithelial linings. So what happened is when the tars deposit on the lining, right, they can damage the lining, and also they can damage the cilia. Cilia, 它破坏这个呼吸道的纤毛。And then what happened if the cilia on the respiratory lining already being destroyed? That means the cilia cannot carry out their functions, which is they will help to move the mucus, right? Because the function of cilia is to what? What is function of cilia? Okay, the function of cilia is they will do the cilia beating. They will do this bit forward and backwards to move the mucus. This is our functions. So mucus, what they do? Mucus will trap the dust particle. And then they need to move the mucus, right, which already trapped the dust particle, to be removed away from the respiratory tract. Through coughing and sneezing. So this is function of cilia. They're just like a broom, you know, a sweeping broom, okay? They just beat forward, backward, because they want to move the mucus. So now is tar, they will destroy the cilia. So if the cilia already been destroyed, no one able to move the mucus. Okay, and some more, this tar, right, is very sticky. So if very sticky, right, they can irritate the respiratory lining. Yeah, irritates. So if the respiratory lining is being irritated, right, due to the protective mechanism, the respiratory lining, right, they will tend to produce more mucus because they thought they have some infection, right? So they can produce more mucus. But the problem is you don't have cilia help to mute. You don't have the cilia help to move the mucus. So that's why you can cause the mucus accumulate within these respiratory linings. So the mucus become thicker and thicker. Okay, so whenever the mucus become thicker and thicker, right, they can block the airways. Yeah, so thick layer of mucus might block the airway. Then what happens if the airway is being blocked? It will lead to conditions known as the COPD, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. And also they lead to the respiratory infection like bronchitis. Okay, bronchitis is because the airway is being irritated, right? Irritates by some chemical substance. So that's why they will produce a mucus. So the mucus, once they've been produced, right, they will reduce the lumen of the airways. Okay, because the airway become narrower and narrower due to the deposition of the mucus. So this will reduce the efficiency of the gaseous exchange as the airway become narrower now. Okay. And then for this one, they will conduct a study, right? They want to compare the men's and the women's between 35 and 44 years. They smoke the cigarettes. And then they try to compare how the smoking affected the death rate due to the lung cancer. So you can see, right, the trends, okay? So when we answer this kind of question, right, you need to be observant. So you need to able to describe how is the line graph look like. For example, when we talk about the men's, right, the line graph will be in like overall reducing trends. This is the men, right? The line graph is something like this. Then how about in the death rate? The death rate, right, they also decrease. So by this way, right, you can assume that whenever the men, right, they have requires whenever there's a lesser smoking occurs in the men populations, means that the men they smoke lesser, so they can cause the reductions of the lung cancer annually. Okay, they can reduce the men's infected by the lung cancer annually, year by year. So how about in the women's? Women's, right, actually it show increasing trend from 1950 to 1970. This is an increasing trend. So, but from the 1970 above, right, they will be showing decreasing trend. So what's happened for the women, right, the death rate due to the lung cancer? So during 1915 to 1970, right, you're actually showing the increasing trend. But on the 1970 to 2000s years, right, you're actually showing a slightly decrease. It's not decreased rapidly, but you can show that it's like slightly decreased. And then they become like stagnant already. And so that you need to describe about the change, okay, and do the comparisons between the women's and the men's. So this is your comparison, right? You can say that throughout the entire period from 1950 to 1998, which is this one, 1950 to 1998, what happened is the percentage of the men who smoke was higher than the percentage of women's. Because the women's, right, even though they are showing decreasing trend of smoking, but the number is still higher compared to women's. It's about more than 80% of men smoking. Okay, so the peak percentage for the men's, right, were approximately 82% in 1915. Oh, sorry, 1950, yeah, here, which is the highest percentage of the men smoking. How about in the women's? Women's, right, they just peak about 50% in 1960. Sorry, in the 1970. So they are discussing about plot at here and here. Why? Because they have the highest rate of the smoking. So this is a very, very good discussion point, okay? So see, peak means right, highest percentage of the men or women. So they know as peak. But if you compare the general trend, right, it's different from the men's and the women's. So from the 1950 to 1970, right, the percentage of male smoker, they decreased significantly. From the 82% becomes 65%. So you can see, right, from this 82%, right, they drop down, become here, which is about 65% already. Well, the percentage of the female smoker, right, they just increase significantly from the 25% to the peak of the 50%. Yeah, like this. Okay. It's not 25, sorry, it's about 40. Yeah, from 40 to 50. This one, I made some correction, okay? 40 to 50. But on the 1970 onwards, right, the smoking for both gender decreased. Yeah. Okay. Which is after these years, right, both show decreasing trend. So if you want to do the comparisons, you can compare like this. The difference in the smoking percentage between the men and women becomes smaller over time. So in the 1950s, right, there was a very, very large gap, about 57 percentage point, which is 82 for the men and 25 for the women, which is like here. Okay, can just imagine that 1950, right, women's is about 40% of the women's smoking. And then it's about 82% of the men smoking. So 82 minus 40 is, you can get how much? It's not safe. It's not 65, sorry. It's about 40. Okay, it's about 40. Yeah. So that's why let me correct with this one. Okay. The percentage of the male smoker, right, they are decreasing from 82% to about 65%. So now from the 82%, which is like here, so now they reduce in amount, okay, until they reach here. It's about 70%, okay, it's about 70%. So this is how you will write the answer. Just give them with the correct value. So while the percentage of female smoker increased significantly from the 40% to the peak of 50%. So you can see, right, from 40 to 50, which is here. Yeah, increasing the population's smoking in women's. But in 1970 onwards, right, the smoking rate for the both gender decreased. Yeah. Okay, so the difference in the smoking percentage between the men and women becomes smaller over time. So in the 1950, right, there was a large gap, about 57% of points. So it's about 82% of men's and 25% for women. Sorry, it's not 25. It's about 40%. Okay, it's about 40%. So 82 it's not multiplied, minus 40 will be how many difference? 82 minus 45, right? It will be like 37. Okay, the gap between the male and female who smoke, right, is about 37. So men, they have a higher percentage of smoker compared to the women. But by 1998, right, the gap have narrowed just 9 percentage point. So which is here. Yeah, actually narrowing the graph. Okay, here. So you have the male about how many percentage? Let me calculate for you. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. So it's about 36. For the female, right, it will be about 28. 36 minus 28 will be about 8%. Okay. How many marks for these questions? 4 marks. So this is how you're able to do the comparison between men and the women. Okay. Means that you need to observe the general trends and then you describe based on the years given. So like this, they describe starting from 1950 to 1970, here from here. Okay, because they can see that there is a like suddenly pick up at here or reduce at here. Okay, so that's why they pick up this 1915 and 1970 as the first stage to describe. So just need to describe the trend with the appropriate keywords, which is like decrease, increase significantly, both decrease, become smaller over time, something like that. Okay, so what's the correlation between smoking and the lung cancer? Just know that, okay, if you smoke more, you have the more risk to getting the lung cancer. As simple as that. Okay, so you should discuss, right? Discuss means that you should give a reason also. So when inhaled from the cigarette smoke, carbon monoxide, they will bind very strong and permanently to the hemoglobin until the oxygen have no space to bind to the hemoglobin. So this compound is very stable, which is the carboxy hemoglobin. So the action, right, they will significantly reduce the blood capacity to transport the oxygen throughout the body. Because all hemoglobin already associated with the carbon monoxide. So there's no more hemoglobin for the oxygen. So if there's no more hemoglobin for the oxygen, right? So that means the oxygen they are unable to transport to the actively respiring body cell. Okay, so another thing is tar. Tar is the sticky black substance found in the tobacco smoke. So they contain this carcinogenic chemical and they can induce lung cancer. So how they can do is they will damage the respiratory system by coating and blocking the alveoli and the paralyzing the cilia. See, okay, just important. It's not important. Okay, just if you want to write a simple answer, okay, because I just worry that this answer is too complicated for you. But if you want to write a very, very simple answer, just write that car will destroy the cilia and the respiratory lining. That's all. Okay, so this damage lead to overproduction of mucus. So you can see mucus, they can produce more until they block the airway because there's no cilia help to move the mucus to another spot. So it will make the smoker more prone to respiratory infections such as bronchitis. Okay, so by coating the alveolus, right, tar reduce the efficiency of gas exchange in the lung. So tar, they can deposit in the airways, in the alveoli, destroy the cilia along the airway. There's a tar. Okay, this one. For our pregnant women, right, we don't encourage them to smoke. Do you know why? It's because that when the woman they are smoking, I know that someone they cannot stop to smoke. They still want to smoke. It's because that this smoke, right? I mean when they are smoking, right? The smoking, they will have the nicotine, right? Nicotines, they will have the tar. So now we talk about nicotine first. Nicotine is something like they will cause addictions to the patients, which is constantly to smoke every day. Okay, because nicotines they able to like destroy the respiratory lining. Okay, so the reason that pregnant women do not smoke is because that toxins in the smoke, right? For example, the nicotines, the tar, right? They can cross the placenta. So dangerous. So if the toxins cross the placenta, right? Maybe they will cause miscarriage. Or the baby being born with a defect. okay, because it's being affected by the toxin. So it will reduce the oxygen available to the fetus, and then it will lead to the fetus brain damage. And then they will increase the lung infection in fetus. Okay, so if the question asks you, define the definition of drug. So here's the definition. So drug is a chemical substance that are taken into the body. See, chemical substance taken into the body and subsequently modify or affect temperature and affect its chemical reactions and the metabolism. Means that the drug they're able to modify, means that they can allow this reaction to happen in a faster rate or in a slower rate. Okay, this one I think you do before, right? Which is this one. How impulse able to transmit across the synapse. So the answer is just similar to the last time that we did. Okay, it means that you need to write about sensory neuron, vesicle, contain the neurotransmitter, fused with membrane, releasing the neurotransmitter to the synaptic cleft. And then the neurotransmitter molecule, right, they can bind to the specific receptor proteins on the membrane of the relay neurons. So the shape of this receptor is complementary to the neurotransmitter molecule, so ensuring that's fixed. So by this way, you were able to trigger the new nerve impulse in the relay neuron. Okay, actually this one relay neuron, right, you can just change to the whole sided neuron to be better. So whole sided neuron. Relay neuron is usually found inside the spinal cord. Okay, so here's a keyword that you should write in the exam. Okay, so it means that they bind to the specific proteins on the pole-sided neuron. Okay, and then for this one, how the structure of the synapse able to ensure that impulse travel in one direction only. So the reason that the nerve impulse they can only travel in one direction across the synapse is because the synaptic vesicle, right, they contain the neurotransmitter, and then this vesicle only found in the pre-synaptic neuron only. And then while the specific protein receptor they bind to this neurotransmitter, they are only located in the post-synaptic neuron. Means that on the pre-synaptic neuron, you will have the vesicle with the neurotransmitter. But on the post-synaptic neurons, you will have the receptor proteins to the neurotransmitter. Okay, this will be another challenge question. Okay, this question is quite hard also. Worth a try. Okay, when an impulse arrives along the sensory neuron B, they will cause a different neurotransmitter being released out. So this will prevent the production of impulse in the relay neuron. So the molecule of the heroines have the similar shape to the neurotransmitter released from the neuron. So how heroin affect the function of the synapse? So you need to know this. After the people taken up the heroines will convert become the morphines within the brains. So morphine is the because something like the president of the brains, right? Yeah. So morphine they did a lot of things. Morphine, right? They will diffuse into the synapse and bind to the specific receptor on the whole sided membrane. So you can see, right? Morphine they can bind to the receptor proteins on the pole-sided membrane. These receptors, right, are normally being used by the body natural pain relief neurotransmitter, like in the endorphins. Okay, like in the endorphin. I'm not sure, do you remember about last week, right? We talked about neurotransmitter. Okay, we talked about we have 4 types of happy hormones, which is the endorphins, okay, dopamines, and then the oxytocins are those kind of happy hormones. So endorphin, right, they are being blocked Okay, because the morphine already bind to the receptor on the post-actin membrane. And then also because the morphine shape, right, is complementary to this receptor. So it can bind to them and stimulate the relay neuron. This one, see, morphine shape is complementary to this receptor. Okay, so the actions mimic the effect of the natural endorphins, which lead to the reduced perception of pain and feelings. Okay, morphine stimulates the release of dopamine, a neurotransmitter associated with the pleasure and the rewards. Okay, so what does this mean? This means that because in the normal situations, which is the neurotransmitter, they will bind to the active transport. But now the problem is the neurotransmitter is come from the heroines or the morphines. Okay, so the morphine molecule, right, they can compete. Okay, they can compete with other molecule and then they bind the receptor on the post-actin membrane. So it's because that morphine shape also complementary to receptor. So they bind to them and then they stimulate the neurons. So that means that the morphine, right, they just can act like the endorphins. Okay, but the morphine is requires is the original, okay, it's the original type of drug. So it causes the complementary to the receptor morphines. So how about natural endorphin? Natural endorphin also they can bind to the receptor, and actually those receptor, right, actually is for the endorphins. Okay, so yeah, like this. So and that's what just for this kind of question, right, you need to know is heroines they convert become the morphine first. So after that, morphine, right, morphines they have a complementation. Shift to this receptor. So they can help to bind to the this one. Okay, they can bind to the receptor protein on the post-actin membrane. This one. These three stimuli are the pain which human can detect. So those are the stimulus. Okay, so this one you can have a read again. Antagonistic, peripheral, optical brains. You can read by yourself. And then for this one, okay, transmission of the nerve impulse relies on the flow of the ion through the cell membrane of the neuron down the causal gradients. So an active transport is responsible for maintaining the causal gradients of the ions across the membrane of the neurons. So now, explain how the ions is being moved across the membrane by active transport. So active transport, right, it's a kind of process, which is they will move the ions and across the membrane of the neuron using the specific carrier proteins. See, active transport move ions across the membrane. So this process, right, requires the energy input function because it moves ions. So at this one, whenever the transportation is involved in the ion, any kind of ion, no matter it's potassium, magnesium, oxygen ion, right? First, okay, you will is unable to directly pass through the phosphate barrier. So that's why you need the help. I mean, you need the help from the active transport. Okay, from the active transport. And then for this one, you can do by yourself. And then okay, this is a very challenging question. Where's the year? 2019. Okay, it's quite challenging. So this is a pre-synaptic, post-synaptic. This is enzyme breakdown neurotransmitter molecule, and A and B. Okay, so many drugs interfere with the actions of the neurotransmitter at the junction between neurons. So whenever you have a drug, right, no matter it's the actual drug or any kind of drug, so they will cause, you actually play the neurotransmitter. You actually play the neurotransmitter. So if you are lacking of a certain type of neurotransmitter, you feel very like tiring, something like that. Okay, so the drug atropine and acerins. Okay, now they want to ask about effect of the two drugs on the nervous system using the informations. Okay, atropine, right? The neurotransmitter cross the synapse and bind the receptor to generate an impulse. Okay, they can just pass through the synaptic cleft, bind to the receptor proteins on the pulsating neuron, and creating an impulse. So atropine, right, is a drug that can block these receptor molecules. This will prevent the neurotransmitter from binding to the pulsating neuron. So, and then it will stop the new nerve impulse being generated. So as a result, signal transmission is halted. Halted means, right, to delay. So which can reduce the muscle response and sensitivity to pain. Okay, so you can just imagine it this way. Yeah, maybe have drawn here. So this is the pulsating neuron. What will be the presenting neuron? Okay, the problem is yeah, so here is a receptor molecule. And then here is a so whenever this synaptic vesicle, right, they release the content inside. Okay, this content, right, they can able to bind to the protein receptor. And then how about the acerins? So after the impulse is being sent, right, the enzyme normally break down the neurotransmitter in the synapse to stop the signal. Okay, acerin work by blocking this enzyme. Then to cause the neurotransmitter to remain in synaptic gap for long periods, right? As a result, continuously binding to the receptor and repeatedly stimulated the pulsating neuron will send more impulse than the usual. So this will lead to the repeated muscle cycle, and then it will act as a stimulus. Okay, so you should know this type of drug, atropine and acerins. I think that this out here. See, atropine and acerin. This one. Okay, so atropine, right, you're actually blocking the receptor protein. So after you block the receptor protein, right, after neurotransmitter cannot bind to it. For the acerin, right, you're actually blocking the enzyme that can break down the neurotransmitter. Okay, so one is you block the receptor proteins, another one you block the enzyme. So acerin, what they do is they will block the enzyme, okay? And then for this one, yeah, describe the effect of the anabolic steroid or female alerts. Okay, so discuss the argument using the use of an anabolic reaction in the sport. Okay, so what is the arguments against? So argument means that I tell you are wrong, but you need to show me why you are wrong, how you're able to wrong. This is kind of arguments. Okay, so what happened is when you are constantly using these anabolic reactions, right? I mean the anabolic concentrations. So it's considered as unethical because it forms a cheating. Means that it will give a user an unfair physical advance by increasing the by increasing this sugar. Yeah, this one. Yeah, so the basic consequence is athletes who are caught using steroid face severe penalties, include being banned from the sport, which can end their career. Okay, means that if the athlete, I mean, if the athletes, right, they can being caught to drink this kind of testosterone, right, they will be disqualified for the competition. So if you drink more steroid, right, what will happen is it might contribute to the negative health effect. For example, like my LDL, this one, my cholesterol, right, will become very high in level because I do consume a lot of the electron side. And then followed by that, Oh, sorry. Just I disconnect for about how many minutes? I stop until where? I stop until here, right?
Yeah.
These are 3 use of energy in the human body. I discussed on here already. Yes or no?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Sorry. My apology. Okay, I understand. Another 7 minutes you need to rush for your meeting. Okay, so okay. Later, I think next class, right, we can extend it, become longer a bit. Yeah. So eddy transport and the transmission of nerve impulse require the energy input. And also, like, if your body want to synthesis the macromolecule, okay, macromolecule, like the proteins or lipid, they also require the energy input to your to the process, okay, which is just what we call the anabolic reactions. This one, anabolic reactions. Anabolic reactions, which is your body will synthesis on the new thing, new substance. Like for example, like your pancreatic cell. For example, like the pancreatic cell, they will produce the insulin hormones. They will produce the hormones, insulin hormones. Okay, so these insulin hormones, right? They are being produced from the cell. So this we call as anabolic reactions. Produced on new thing, something. Okay, so this is drug. Also the same definitions. And then for this one, what is the effect of the excessive alcohol on the body, right? So maybe we have this one, depressants. Okay, so the effect is they will lengthen the person reaction time and then you reduce their self-control. So that's why the people who are already drunk, right, they cannot control themselves. And then they will become very like not alert, okay, not alert as usual. Okay, so the effects of the alcohol, there will be these are addictions, or they cause a severe liver damage. Okay, so if you drink more alcohol, right, you have what? Other harmful effects to the fetus. So now you need to describe how alcohol will affect the fetus. So the fetus, right, will have this one miscarriage, 流产, or the fetus will become very low birth weight, or they will have this one fetal alcohol syndrome. Okay, it's a kind of syndrome that will affect this newborn fetus if the mothers always drink the alcohol. Okay, so definitely alcohol will affect the fetus. When the women are in pregnancy, right, they cannot drink too much alcohol because alcohol will affect the fetus. So it's because that alcohol able to cross the placenta. So apart from the alcohol, right, what other kind of drug able to cross the placenta? Like the nicotines, nicotines, heroines, or the HIV virus, heavy metals, they are able to cross the placenta from the mother and infected the baby. Okay. This is just as simple as that now, okay? Which is when you talk about the like this, why people find it difficult to stop smoking tobacco. Like, so it's just same question like why people cannot stop smoking. So it's because that they will have this addict, they will cause addictions. So if they want to quit, right, they will have this withdrawal symptoms. So it will make them to smoke again, because they feel very desperate without the nicotines. So the disease, right, it will cause the lung cancer or the coronary heart disease. Okay, coronary heart disease. So the tobacco, they can damage the alveolus lining or they can damage the cilia. It will be the tar, okay? So tar is very sticky, very black, kind of the carcinogenic chemical compound. Okay, and then for this one, yeah, penicillin is a kind of antibiotic used to treat the bacterial infections. So it's a belong to the antibiotic in the penicillin. Okay, so this you can read by yourself. Yeah, that's all for this. And also, I think, okay, we talk about this one. Yeah, this one. How the antibody resistance being developed in the population of bacteria. So you need to know that, okay, the development of the antibody resistance is due to the natural selection. You need to write this keyword. So within any bacterial population, right, variation will exist due to the random mutations. The mutations, right, they will give the bacterium an advantage, such as become resistant to the antibiotic. Okay, you can just imagine that within your intestines, within your body, right, there's a very great varieties of the bacteria. Okay, so each of the bacteria, right, they have the different genetic composition. So some bacteria, they carry the resistant genes towards the antibiotic. So this kind of bacteria, right, they are unable to kill by the antibiotic. So if you do not complete the full dose of the treatment, right, it will cause this kind of bacteria still not able to kill, right? So this kind of bacteria, they able to develop chance, so they can reproduce more. So this is because there has a variation. Do you know what's meant by variations? Variation is referred to the difference, okay? Difference in the bacteria. I mean difference in the genetic composition of a bacteria. 就是说每一个细菌有不同的基因的那个结构。Okay, so when the antibody is present, it will cause a non-resistant bacteria are killed, but the resistant bacteria, they can survive and reproduce. So they can pass on genes to the offspring. Okay, so other question you can read by yourself. Okay, I already sent to you. So the question is not too hard. Okay, just you need to read more and know the keywords to write in your exam. Okay, so that's all for today. See you in next class. Okay, bye. Waiting for your homework. Waiting for your homework for this chapter 15. Okay, bye.